the world might do me in. It's alright, 'cause I'm with friends. 'Cause I'm gay.
Okay, it's good to be back. Sorry, it's been forever. I have no words for how crappy I've been doing at the whole upload thing. But good news, I have the next episode of the Bobber Build as you are watching. So, you know, if you look down, the months go by very, 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 very long before I get videos. But there's a couple in the bank right now, and I'm finally moved, and I've got all my crap together, so here we go. Last time I was doing a lot of hooking up and mocking up and actually drilling and all that kind of stuff. Now I'm on the the wiring harness part of it. So I'm kind of giving this to you backwards in video, but it's only for explanatory reasons, or better explanation. So right now, I've cut a piece of loom, and I'm actually running that loom. Every bit of my wiring harness should eventually go through this loom. And the reason I'm taking it in and putting it out is because, one, it's not laying the correct direction I'm wanting it to. It's flat, so I'm kind of trying to get it to wrap in a certain way. But, I mean, it's wire, and it's loom, and it's a pain. So I've had to redo the entire wiring harness for this motorcycle because I've had absolutely none. So it winds up being that I have to supply power to everything, and I have to basically make everything happen, which I don't know why I moved my camera away right then. That was kind of weird. Okay, so as you're seeing, I'm continually routing things. So I looked up a ton on how to wire motorcycles, and a lot of them just say, well, start with a wiring diagram, or just start drawing your own wiring diagram, which, I mean, there is no better way to explain it, but what I did was I took my fuse panel and I drew it, which it's just some crappy marine fuse panel that I got from Amazon for like 15 bucks. I 3D printed a little bracket under it, which I don't know if I actually have that in there right now. By the way, sorry for the out of focus. My D7000 keeps giving me a ton of trouble with that. I don't know why it likes to focus on things behind me. I set it to like action focus, so it's like, oh, if it picks up movement, it should see it. But it's whatever. Okay, so I don't have that bracket in there, but that fuse panel is basically a whole bunch of positives line up with the fuse, and then a whole bunch of negatives are on a block behind it, which I'll pull it out in a bit and I'll actually show you, or you'll be able to see it. So right now I'm just running wire for my brake, and by the way, continually test everything that you put through. So when you hook something up, make sure you hook it up fully. Then after that, make sure you've got no shorts, and then after that, turn the key, and if the fuse doesn't blow, cool, and then actuate whatever it is. Like if it is a thing you can turn on, turn it on. If it's a thing that modulates like high beam, low beam kind of thing, or switches between circuits, make sure like put it basically through a mini stress test. So make sure it works. As you can see, that negative portion is the one that's actually covered in plastic in the back. So there's all my fuses. I've got them in line. Right now I'm just hooking stuff up to whatever. Eventually I wound up adhering to my wiring diagram. So this is all sort of like get it to work, then put it correct. Which at this time, I think I was just using the same fuse over and over, or same fuse bracket over and over. So it wasn't anything like the ignition was on its own circuit, but all the lights, my headlight, my tail light, my brake lights, I think my brake lights were on a second one. Headlight was on on its own. My gauge cluster was on its own, and then my ignition was on its own. Yeah, headlight, gauge cluster, brakes, ignition. Yeah. So that was pretty much all I had. I think I wound up splitting up the brakes or something like that because it kept blowing fuses, and it turns out I had to diagnose a crappy brake switch in my front brake handle. So I think I wound up just not going with a brake switch on my front handle. But I mean, it's a bobber. I'm not doing anything super sporty, so basically every time I'm braking, I'm either using my back and my front or my back alone. Pardon me. Okay, so now I also got an ignition key lock for this bike, or with this bike, and this is me hooking it up. And I know everything right now is like, there's a ton of red wires. Why is there no black? Because basically all your hot comes in and out of your key switch and goes to the fuse box. So that's how I wanted to label it. I do have a wiring schematic drawn up, but it's changed so much since I've been diagnosing and changing that I need to write another one. But like I said, I would highly recommend like either get yourself a whiteboard or a piece of paper, some colored pencils, pencil crayons, whatever, markers, and just put a line from fuse, or like line goes from battery to fuse box to key switch, put everything in there and label it. And right now I'm hooking up my battery, which I didn't really have the battery secured in there, because I kept having to take it in and out and in and out, because I didn't want anybody stealing the motorcycle. Oh god, you can tell I'm super tired as well. So this is pretty much, I think, the first or second time that I was putting in the battery, but I wound up taking it out, and later on you'll see me, I go for a test ride with the battery like duct taped to this thing, or no, it was masking tape to it. It was only like barely around the block, so if the battery fell, it was like, who cares kind of thing. And this is one of the first things I did. I actually routed the back tail light and brake light. God, sorry. Yeah, so that loom, basically it's like a Chinese finger trap. When you push it together, it expands, and then you shove everything you can into it, and then you just kind of work everything you can down it. It's not bad, but it's not my favorite. You can see the wiring through it if you look really closely. It is black, but it's a net kind of material, so when you push it all together, you can actually not see much through it. When it thins out, if you've stuffed that with a lot of wiring, that you can actually see colors through it. So what I did for my rear brake light was run a bunch of wiring through it, as you're seeing me fight with now. And then after that, I wound up, oh god, I am so sorry. And then I wound up zip tying it. So I kind of get all my wiring in place, what I want run there, and then I run the loom down it, or disconnect it at one point, and run the loom down it so I can get everything through it. And then after that, when everything works, hook it back up to see if it works again, and then zip tie complete. But yeah, that's basically how to wire an entire motorcycle. So yeah, just go through it, check everything you hook up, check, and make sure you check your last thing too. So if you hook up your horn and your brake, make sure your horn works, then you hook up your brake, make sure your horn and your brake works, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, till next time, guys.
Runs. Aw.